All right. Good morning. Welcome in, everybody. All right. So, my name is Cameron Lipford. I am the youth coordinator with North Carolina Families United. And we are here today to talk about substance abuse prevention and awareness, as well as, suicide prevention awareness, as well as suicide recovery, and substance abuse recovery as well. Um, Let me see here. We're going to get to talking a little bit. I don't have a presentation today, so what we're going to do, just talk a little bit. And I have two videos that we're going to watch. One of them, we will have some discussion questions. So I definitely want everybody to be involved. You can come off camera, come off mute, go in the chat. I'm glad it looks like everybody's able to access their own things, Heather. So they should be able to do that. But I just want to thank you guys for joining with us today and just begin by acknowledging the courage that it takes for everybody to attend, a session like this, right? Where we'll be talking about some heavy information, but some stuff that we definitely need to talk about, right? Um, we'll be talking about suicide, substance abuse, and recovery. So I just ask that you please take care of yourself during the webinar. If you need to pause, step away, or turn off your camera, that is absolutely okay. You are not alone, and you can also, reach out in the chat if you feel the need. All right. So just to get us started, right? We know that suicide is one of the leading causes of death in our country, and substance abuse often increases that risk. But we also know there's hope, right? Prevention and recovery are possible. And our goal today is not only to raise awareness, but also share tools, resources, and a little bit of encouragement. Um, and I'll just start off by saying I do not personally have, I guess you would say, a story or a testimony with necessarily substance abuse myself. I do feel like most young youth, especially coming to college, have struggled with, alcohol use, overuse, being exposed to it even if they haven't before. And I will say that's something I definitely struggled with. And then also, my parents, had their own bouts with substance abuse. So just being a child of a parent that struggled with that and unfortunately still struggles with that. And kind of what that brings, it's not all, for me, I guess it depends on the person. It's not all rainbows and fairy tales, but it's not all, rain and hail and tornadoes either. I'm thankful for the experiences that I've had and the journeys that I've had that's, led me to the person I am, to the work that I do today, and why I'm kind of here and able to share these kind of things and start these conversations and think they are important. So not too much into myself, but yeah, I'm 27, like I said, and I'm the youth coordinator for North Carolina Families United. So I'm a little bit, um, I say fresh to the space. I've been doing this for 4 years now, I think. So it's not so I can't use that excuse anymore. But I'll still say it. But either way, so that's just a little bit about me, and just like I said, my journey with this topic and kind of where this goes. But we're not going to take up a lot of time with that. Um, so, the first video that we're going to watch today is called The Psychology of Suicidal Thinking, right? It explores what happens in the brain during suicidal crisis because, unfortunately, I believe a lot of people don't actually understand what's going on when somebody they love or they know or maybe even don't know, maybe having suicidal ideations or thinking or anything like that. So as we prepare to watch this film, I just ask that you guys reflect on how you can shift your perspective about people struggling with suicidal thoughts and what is going to stand out to you the most or was the most important or surprising fact. And this video is a little more factual than it is like a story, so it's definitely more for information. So I'm going to get that pulled up here. And once again, I'm just so thankful for everyone being here. If you guys want to, introduce yourselves in the chat or anything or put any information in there, you're definitely welcome. Let me see if it's going to let me do it this way. All right. Share screen. And then I guess, Heather or Leah, you guys just come off mute and let me know if the sound is not working because it was working before, so it should be. Mm,
Video discusses difficult
We
topics,
can hear it.
death, and
okay.
suicide. It's not a substitute for professional help. If you feel like you need it, please take a look at the resources in the description. According to the World Health Organization, more than 700,000 people die due to suicide every year. But what about those who aren't included in these statistics? The ones who quietly suffer from suicidal thoughts every day. Even in our recent video on passive suicidal ideation, many of you agreed with not wanting to wake up in the morning, which is very alarming. So why is this happening? What makes so many people turn to such definite thoughts? This topic is often considered too dark and taboo to discuss, leading many people to suppress their feelings. This suppression can intensify emotions and worsen suicidal ideation. This is why we made this video. Let's dive into this important issue. Stuck in a cage. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by setbacks? Like every effort you make just leads to another failure. Or maybe you've been in a situation where it seems like there's no way out, no matter how hard you try to think of a solution. Psychologists believe that these two emotions, entrapment and defeat, predict suicidal ideation. Defeat refers to a sense of constant failure, where life feels like a series of battles you can never win. When defeat sets in, it often leads to entrapment, the perception that you're stuck in a difficult situation with no escape. These feelings are incredibly difficult and can weigh heavily on anyone's mind. But for individuals experiencing suicidal ideation, these uncomfortable emotions become almost unbearable. When this happens, they might feel like suicide is the only way out, which is certainly not the case. These emotions might be powerful and consuming, but there are other paths to escape them, even if they aren't immediately visible. Therapy, support from loved ones, or simply enough time can provide new perspectives and solutions that seemed impossible before. Not a soul to tell. People who struggle with suicidal ideation may also feel disconnected from the world around them, even when surrounded by people. This deep sense of loneliness is more than being alone. It's being unseen, unheard, and unsupported. This loneliness doesn't just affect their mood, it can alter their thoughts and perceptions. That's why loneliness can often lead them to think nobody would care if they weren't there anymore. Researchers found that feeling lonely can have a devastating impact, especially on vulnerable populations such as the elderly, adolescents, LGBTQ plus individuals, and those with chronic illnesses. This is why having a strong network of friends or family can provide emotional support, practical help, and a sense of belonging, relieving the burden of suicidal thoughts. But we know that it's often hard to find this kind of support. And that's why we hope our comment section can provide anyone with kindness, connection, and genuine concern. There's always someone out there to listen. Escape route. Imagine experiencing a kind of pain so deep and intense that it feels impossible to bear. This is not a physical pain, but a psychological one, often referred to as psychache. Psychache, a neologism coined by suicidologist Edwin Schneidman, is defined as unbearable psychological pain, hurt, anguish, soreness, and aching. Research has shown that people experiencing suicidal ideation are often highly motivated to avoid this psychological pain. They're not necessarily seeking death itself, but are driven by an intense wish to end their suffering. The thought of suicide serves them as a potential escape from their psychache. That's why they might fantasize about dying, even if they don't actively engage in suicidal behavior. In a way, those fantasies provide them comfort from their hurt. Yet, there's a quote that perfectly describes the reality of these thoughts. Suicide does not end the pain. It passes it to someone else. By committing suicide, these feelings get transferred to loved ones and create a never-ending loop of pain, grief, and loss. Inside a dark brain. Studies have shown that suicidal thoughts and behaviors are also linked to specific changes in the brain. Neuroimaging studies, which use advanced technology to look inside the brain, revealed noticeable changes in certain brain areas when someone experienced suicidal ideation. The ventral prefrontal cortex and dorsal prefrontal cortex are crucial for regulating our emotions and making decisions. The insula, another key brain region, helps us process our emotions and how we feel physically. When these areas are not working correctly, it can lead to intense negative feelings and difficulty making decisions. Essentially, these brain changes mean that people experiencing suicidal thoughts often can't think as clearly or make decisions as they normally would. The intensity of these thoughts and emotions can make it hard for them to see beyond their current state of mind. Understanding this can help us see why suicide is never a reasonable solution. Because the brain changes and intense emotions driving these thoughts are temporary and completely treatable. The guardians. But no matter how overwhelming all of these emotions and thoughts can get, it's important to know that there's always hope. Psychologists call this protective factors, things that can protect against suicidal thoughts or behaviors. Learning effective coping mechanisms is one such factor. These skills act as a toolkit to help you manage stress and emotional pain. Having a sense of purpose is equally important, whether it's through work, hobbies, or personal goals. Having something to strive for can give life meaning and direction and provide motivation. Access to mental health resources is another critical protective factor. Being able to reach out for professional help and support can make a significant difference. We listed some of these resources in the description box. Please take a look if you or someone you know needs them. We'd like to end this video with a personal example. On September 25th, 2000, 19-year-old Kevin Hines jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. During the fall, his body rotated in such a way that when he hit the water, his vertebrae and internal organs were damaged, but he survived. When asked about his experience, he later said, "There was a millisecond of free fall, and in that instant I thought, what have I just done? I don't want to die. God, please save me." Kevin's story is a reminder that many people who attempt suicide may experience immediate regret, realizing they don't actually want to die. Sadly, those who didn't survive likely felt the same, but they never got the chance to express it. Please, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, reach out and talk to someone. You're never alone, and help will always be available.
We can't hear you, Cam.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so I'll just say Psych2Go is an amazing organization. They do a lot of informational videos, resources, free stuff like that. So definitely check them out. But yeah, I just, to me at least, I'll start about what stood out to me. I know there's a lot of people, in the world who think, science and emotions and those things are separate, right? And so I think it's beautiful to be able to see and understand from everybody's perspective how all these things kind of they go together. It's not one or the other, or somebody, isn't right or isn't wrong about how they feel about, supporting an idea of where it comes from or what causes it, because there is a lot of stigma, behind mental health and things like that, and that's something that we've have known for a long time. So I just thought that was interesting. If anybody wants to share their thoughts or any comments from the video, please do.
I'll say I am an individual that has constant pain. I'm a chronic pain patient, and it is very difficult sometimes just waking up daily. Um, and I'm sorry, I did not introduce myself. I'm the executive director of North Carolina Families United, um, and that is one of the things about our organization, the lived experience. We have experiences. We are not just individuals that talk about it. We walk it daily. Um, and that is something that I have, I've dealt with in the past. Suicidal thoughts. Sometimes it feels like, gosh, I feel like I'm better off not here. And because I don't want to be a person that complains about hurting all the time. And, I want to be fun and uplifting and encouraging to others. But sometimes it does get overwhelming, just the pain. of not being able to get up or walk and do the things that I used to do. Um, but uh, I have found a lot of you see me wearing a shirt all the time that says farts. Find a reason to smile, and that is something that has helped me in my journey. Every day I try to find a reason to smile. I try to find a reason to make someone else smile. Um, but suicidal ideation is a real thing, and it is something that I have struggled with in my past. So um, just wanted to say that.
Thank you for sharing, Corey.
I think that the part that gave me the chills was when the person told their story and then they said what happened and he was like, "Oh, I wish I would have survived." Or like there's like that 1 second where they're like, "What have I just done? I wish I could have survived." And unfortunately, some people don't get to survive. But that's really like I had chills all over because it's a scary thought, like somebody wants to take their life and then there's like 1 millisecond in there before it's almost over and they're like, I shouldn't have did that, but it's too late. That was hard.
Yeah,
I
and
wish
like
we
the
could save them all.
Uh,
right, right.
yeah, we've actually dealt with that, you know, in our family. We had a person um that did plan to take their life, but then changed their mind. And when they told the person, you know, they took him to the hospital and everything because it's hard. It is hard. And they took him to the hospital, and then they wanted to live. Unfortunately, they did not. Because I know for a fact that that person had a lot to live for. It was just an overwhelming feeling that she had at that time, and I know in my heart she wished that she would not have taken the steps that she took, and that's the part that hurts so bad because she did take those steps and she did do it, and unfortunately she wasn't able to overcome, and the medicine kept on releasing in her body. So um suicide is real. So
Yeah, and unfortunately, I know that we're based out of Caldwell County, Lenore, North Carolina, which is like the foothills, and there has been an alarming number of youth deaths by suicide, unfortunately. So, that's why these, like we say, these conversations are important. And I definitely, thank you for sharing that. Because it's very hard to even to come on here and in this space and be able to share that kind of information. So once again, thank you, Corey and Leah, for speaking up about those things. But in the wake of that, right, the whole takeaway is that suicidal thinking isn't about weakness. It's about pain, brain chemistry, like we talked about, and kind of like the saying you hear, right? Sometimes our brain is our own enemy, or our mind is playing tricks on us, right? And it's not just a thoughts thing, it's really something chemically happening in the brain. And life circumstances all colliding at once. It's not just one thing to blame, right? So when we understand this, we can respond with compassion, instead of judgment. Like we said, there's hope. Many people who have once considered suicide are now living full, meaningful lives. Asking someone directly about suicide doesn't make things worse, it opens the door to help. Every caring conversation has power to save a life. So, as difficult as it can be, it can literally be the difference between life and death for somebody, just for you to speak up and ask how they're doing, generally, right? So as we know, as far as resources for suicide, the 988 Suicide Crisis and Lifeline, that's still out there. The SAMHSA helpline, they have 1-800 help. And then there's a bunch of recovery centers as well, youth peer support. There's many different ways to definitely find resources and support. And you can always reach out to us as well to help with those things. So the next video that we are going to watch is called The Boy Next Door. It is about substance abuse. It tells a powerful story, and its impact on individuals, families, and communities. And this one, I do have a few questions for us to kind of help with conversation. But let me go ahead and get that going for us here. Oh, let me stop sharing. I gotta click the sound again. All right, can you guys hear this? Yes.
Quinn, I would say he just meant so much to me.
I thought he was the coolest kid on the block.
He would just give you straight up, honest advice, and you knew too that it was coming from a good place.
He was always very adventurous. He had a zest for life that was pretty contagious. He was funny as hell.
Extremely fun-loving, supportive, loyal, just truly someone you could really count on for whatever you needed.
I just knew that this was a kid I would be friends with for the rest of my life.
So this is Quinn and Karen here.
How old were they?
Um,
Perrin was probably 17, so Quinn was probably
18,
18, 19. Quinn's boots,
we
lot of
left
miles
them-
on those
we left
boots.
them here.
This is when we used to go up in the summer. We'd go to Belgrade, Maine for a few weeks and stay on the lake. And one of Quinn's birthdays and all the Nantucket friends, which was really fun. That was a fun day. Quinn came into this world on November 21st, 1991. He was a great baby, very sweet. I would say growing up, you know, as a toddler and such, he was always very loving. He loved his family. He loved being at home. He loved, you know, his sister. They're very close and had so many great memories together. They had, Quinn had a lot of good friends, you know, Lauren and Riley and Morgan and Will, and they were in our house constantly. I felt like I had a lot of children, you know, rather than just two.
I think my first memory from Quinn was probably because there was like I think it was our first grade class with Miss Wayne. We made the front page of the paper and we were kind of like solving a math problem together. And I think ever since probably first grade, we remained friends, and it wasn't really like a conscious moment of like, oh, now we're friends. It was just this gradual thing that happened, and it just, you know, we just stayed friends for forever.
I mean, there's so many things that like made Quinn remarkable, and he was just so naturally gifted in so many different areas of, you know, whether it be athletics or like art or fashion, and just really just enjoyed life like nobody else. He had a hard time dealing with things that were, you know, eating him up inside, but he was always trying to make, you know, us, everybody around him, feel good and feel loved.
Just like the best friend you could ask for. Just one of those guys that it could be, you know, the middle of the night, early in the morning, middle of the day, if you had something that you really needed help with or really needed even just to talk to somebody, you know, just get something off your chest, he'd answer the phone, which is really cool and hard to come by with people.
Quinn was like an older brother. I mean, everything Quinn did, I wanted to do.
We were all back home for the holiday. We were all home for Christmas, and it was the first time that our close group of friends was together, it felt like the gang was back in town. And we were all so excited. I felt like Quinn was invincible again. I felt like Quinn was back in a really good position. So having that feeling before going away, I spent Christmas with my mom up in Vermont, and I had left like Christmas Eve. And so I was up in Vermont when I got the call from Lauren.
We had Christmas Day, and Quinn was really happy to be home. Everybody that knew Quinn knew he loved Christmas. And I went to run a few errands, not thinking anything was wrong. And then I came back, and I walked up the front steps of the porch, and I saw a couple of gifts from Lauren. And I thought, oh, Quinn must have left with Lauren and just left him on the porch, you know. But I came inside, and I saw his boots, his Blundstones, and his Sperry's. And it was winter, so he would have had one or the other on. So at that point, I came around the corner, and the lights on the tree weren't on. And that's the first thing he did during the holidays. I just went running up the stairs.
And, you know, I'll never forget what she said. You know, she's like, Quinn's dead. And it just sort of like, it was just like this. My mind couldn't, I heard what she said and I knew it was real, but I couldn't, like, I didn't know what to do.
Well, it was in the morning when I was called, and I went out there, and the house was full of friends of the parents, friends of Quinn, the police, and it was a highly charged, chaotic scene. People were upset, as they should be.
Yeah, when I pulled in the driveway, there was police everywhere and five, you know, the ambulance, and I was just like, it's just not real. It just can't be real.
I just couldn't help but think that this light, this person who brought so much vibrance and energy into any interaction, I just couldn't help but think that was no longer, that it was like snuffed out.
I just sat down on the ground. I didn't believe it. It wasn't the point in the process that I expected to get a call like that.
With the work you have out here, you make a lot of money, you know, so you can maintain a habit well, you know, where you're gonna keep your habit going, you're gonna be fed, you're gonna be able to go out, you're gonna be able to hang out, buy the clothes you want. And so I think for a long time, like, he was really able to keep the appearance up of the, hey, everything's good here, you know, like I'm dressing nice, I've got friends, I've got everything that I normally have, and he's still in really good shape. So it's like, there was never that moment where I like one day looked at him and thought, whoa, like, you're skinny, or your eyes are sunken in, you look pale. There was
no, he was ripped.
Yeah, he was
very handsome, muscular, like,
yeah,
his tan, like, it was, if there were signs, they're so subtle that, like, and we were maybe just hoping for the best, that we didn't notice anything.
There is this mind picture of a drug addict. You're down and out, not somebody you want in the house. But they're our neighbors, they're our relatives, they're our friends. We have to destigmatize it so people know that there is a way out.
Our daughter, you know, she brought it to our attention on several occasions because she was really worried about him, loves him very much. And we would talk to him, and he was so, was convincing that it was okay, it was under control, everything was okay, Mom, it's all right, don't worry.
I remember vividly, his sister came to me and said, you know, I'm really concerned about Quinn, and I still regret not taking that warning like I probably should have. You know, the Quinn that I knew and spent time with, I didn't have the same, or I didn't have the same concern. I didn't know how to respond. You know, I had no idea what to do.
When you look back, there's those moments where you're like, okay, that behavior was different. But in the moment, you might have the feeling that something's bad is happening, but you don't want to admit it to yourself. You know, I wish that I had just known more. You know, I was young. I didn't know about anything like this.
And same as today, like we all go out and we all go drinking, smoking, like we're all just just normal people. So I think it's so hard to pinpoint like a difference, like like maybe this is a little worse, like maybe he's doing a little more, like maybe like I think it was hard to like, just like they said, like pinpoint that exact time when it was like shit, like this is not just drinking, this is not just smoking, this is not just us like having a good time all as friends, like this has become something like much darker, a lot worse.
I truly believe the lowest point of despair is the loss of one's child, the preventable loss of one's child. And we feel it was preventable. Maybe it wasn't, but as parents, I think that's how we feel.
The issue is when you lose somebody like Quinn, you lose the promise of his youth and what he was going to be or what he could have been. You recognize the effects on his family. And then you have the effects on his friends. And I think this is an unappreciated or unhonored loss.
There's no playbook. There's no right way of going about it. Everyone's unique. Everyone has their own way that they need to communicate or they need support. And the stigma against it makes it so that no one wants to seek help, because whatever judgment there is that follows, coming out with whatever struggle you might have.
I had a patient in here today that all of a sudden said, well, I'm a drunk and an addict. I said, well, you're sort of stigmatizing yourself. Those aren't words that you should use. You have a problem. Would you stigmatize yourself with a broken leg?
It's very easy. The way that Quinn got involved, it just happened so slowly. It wasn't like he took a Percocet one time. And I did ask him, I said, why did, what made you do that? And I said, peer pressure? And he said, maybe a little. But he said, there was a little curiosity too. And he said, when I took it, I got that relief from that voice in my head that said, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. And he said, I liked that feeling. I liked that feeling. Now, anyone that knew Quinn knew he was good enough and he was smart enough. But I think this started when he was really young.
I think if we can listen from an early standpoint or an early stage of, learning of people's struggles before they come to a head where someone chooses to, find a route in which to ease their pain, then that's a much better start than hitting it at at a rehab stage.
I think there's plenty of tactics that kids who are struggling can use. Getting outside, talking to people, finding a healthy outlet. They're all ways that you can combat being lonely and bored, which are two symptoms of the 6 months on Nantucket that are not during the high season.
What I would want people to learn from Quinn, this type of thing can happen to anyone. It can happen to absolutely anyone at any point in your life. This isn't something that happens to young people or people struggling financially or emotionally or anything like that. This can happen to absolutely anyone. It's not something that you should hide from people. Like if you're feeling an urge to do something like that, you've got to talk to someone, because no one who's struggling with addiction really wants to die, I don't think.
We have to destigmatize it so people know that there is a way out. People have to have hope. If people want to get through addiction, they can.
Just know that you're loved, that you're worthy of a good life, that you deserve a good life, that there's more for you. There's so much more for you, and that everybody deserves to know that they're loved and that they're important. and that they mean something. They mean something. And I think that's the thing he would want everyone to know.
Right, their lives are important.
Yeah, they're important.
Quinn's family and friends have shared his story in hopes that it is one step in helping to break the stigma of addiction. People from all walks of life can be impacted by addiction. They need our understanding, not our judgment. Where there is help, there is hope, and we are here to help.
All right. Well, I don't know about you guys, but that's not my first time watching it. But every time I watch that video, it definitely hits home for me. Um, so I, uh, I think it's an amazing story, and it takes a lot of courage for his family and his friends, and everybody close to him to be able to share his story, as unfortunately he has gone on, right? Um, So to that, I mean, I'll open it up if anybody just has a general comment or anything, but then I do just have a few questions. Just have a little bit of conversation about, what we saw in this video today. And as, we're thinking about our thoughts, the one thing or the first thing I want to ask is what is stigma, right? What have you heard stigma be to you when it comes to substance abuse, or people who, may be addicted? What does that look like?
One of the biggest stigmas, I believe, is that they choose it, right? And so they might have chose it in the beginning until they didn't have a choice, right? And so I don't think people understand or realize how difficult it can be, especially when you don't have any support. Um, or if that's all you know. I mean, thankfully, I'm sitting here with 21 years clean, but I work with individuals every day that nobody will even, they say they want to help, but they only want to help until it gets hard, right? And people in addiction are messy, and it takes a while. It doesn't just take one or two times, and so I feel like people, because it is a hard battle to fight, people give up too soon. Thanks.
Um, Hey, my name is Mandy. I'm a peer support, and I have my lived experience is mental health and substance use. And what really got me was like when he told his mom why he took the Percocet, because that was my experience. That voice that I didn't know at the time to identify it as depression. Like the first time I used a substance, that disappeared, and I always wanted to feel that way. And I kept trying to get clean without dealing with my mental health issues, and I had to this time. I've been in recovery 5 years now. I had to deal with both of them at the same time. So
That's awesome. Yes, thank you for sharing, Jennifer and Amanda as well. He is very powerful. And that kind of
Amanda, if I may, that is exactly what a friend of mine said. Um, they were like, I'm in pain all the time. And the first time I felt just an inch of no pain, I wanted that. I wanted to get back to my life and the things that I was doing, the things that I was missing out on. I wanted that and I craved it and I kept chasing that. Um, so that is, that I guess that is a feeling that a lot of people have, just trying to get to that feeling so they can get to a better life or a better, it's not that they are trying. I don't think anybody wakes up and says, I want to be a drug addict and that's my goal is to go out and do this. It's not an intentional thing. You want to do better and you want to be better and you want to just feel better. And so thank you for sharing that. I just wanted you to know that I've had an individual that told me the same thing. Like it's not like I tried to do this. So thank you.
For me, I would say it's definitely tied to the mental health part too, because I started drinking in college. That's really where I learned how to drink. And I didn't even like beer, but I learned and I drank for years. I've been sober for 10 years now. And I literally had to go to a psychiatrist and be like, please help me, because it calms my anxiety. It calms all the things that I suffer with daily. And so that's why I used to drink, because I didn't have a psychiatrist and I didn't address the issues that I had going on. And so now I have that, luckily, so I'm able to stay sober. But a lot of times people just don't realize what's going on, but all they know is that it feels better to be under the influence.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing all these, raw perspectives. And I think the same thing that we got from the video, right? A lot of his friends said, like, I didn't even know what to do. I didn't know this was a thing. And like we were all doing it. So we didn't know that somebody was struggling more than we were. And I think, like, for me being a sister, his sister constantly trying to say, like, hey, like, I think something's going on here, or like, please check on him. That's very unfortunate that, it got further than it did, and that she, had to definitely shoulder that belief in that it got to that point. So I would say that's another thing, right? Like I said, just listening to the people that are closest to, to us, or, to that individual, even if we don't see it ourselves, right? And I think you guys kind of answered, what my next question was about, or what the next discussion question was about, why there's a negative stigma against drug and alcohol addiction, right? Like we just basically said, addiction is misunderstood, and a lot of times it's seen as a weakness instead of an illness, right? It's a medical condition. People don't understand that it can also be treated. So that really is what it is.
Or it's socially accepted until it's not. You know what I mean? Because everybody is all about going out and having drinks and this and that, and they don't recognize that, some people have that addictive nature. And so yes, it goes further than that for them types of people, and some are able to control it, but we live on both sides of the spectrum where it's so super socially accepted, or um they're junkies. You know what I mean? It's like one extreme or the other. So yeah.
I remember when getting sober, I thought to myself, like, I don't even know how to like be a part of society, because if you go bowling, you drink. If you have a birthday party, you drink. If you go anywhere you go, anything I did, everybody around me, they drink. And it was socially, but for me, it obviously was a problem. So it was like you had to learn how to relive your life because it's around you and it's socially accepted everywhere.
Yeah, that's amazing. That actually leads me into my next question. I want you guys to kind of answer here is, what is addiction, right? What is it? What is addiction to you? What is the definition you've heard or you think of when you hear addiction?
I think for me, there's definitely a lot of definitions of addiction, but I think for me that it's anything that causes that controls your life, or causes you to go to the extreme, right? Because it could be anything. We often think about like drugs and alcohol, but man, there's sex addiction, gambling, the whole nine yards that give you the same feeling of addiction, the same disappointment, the same all the things, right? So yeah, I when it starts controlling your life and you're consumed with it, whatever it is, then that's an addiction.
My mom said the exact same thing. My mom used to do Bible study, and she was a very religious person. And I remember asking her one time, like, "Mom, well, what can you do? Like, it seems like there's, in the Bible, it seemed like there were so many things that you could not do." And I was like, I don't want to be a Christian because you can't do anything. And my mom said, "No, you can do a lot of things. You can." She said, it's when you do it in excess, when you do it too much, when you drink too much, or when you eat too much, or even when you say too much. And I was like, you can say too much? Like that can be an addiction? Yes. Yes, it can. You can be addicted to running your mouth and you shouldn't. So that's always stuck with me. An addiction is something that you do too much of. You do it in excess. So, Jennifer, what you said makes sense. You said it, there's all types of addiction. And my brother used to say I was a junk food junkie. So I guess that is my addiction. I'm a junk food junkie. I always thought it was funny and I never thought about it like that, but it makes sense. So,
I think sugar is actually one of the biggest addictions around for
and
most people is
and
sugar.
caffeine.
Uh-huh. But I would also say too, it's no longer a choice. So it's a choice, and then when it becomes an addiction, you're no longer choosing. You're like, you have to have it. You have to. I mean, you can make the choice to not do it, but at that point, you are addicted because you're not making the choice anymore.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of that. And like I said, if you don't feel like coming off camera, off mute, you can also just put your thoughts in the chat if you want to. But I think it's definitely great information we're able to share. And I think for me, not only just in the substance abuse, but this kind of goes back to our other conversation on suicidal ideation, right, or death by suicide. A lot of these things go hand in hand, and it's maybe as simple as, like Leah said, not having a psychiatrist or somebody you can speak to even know where to begin. And I think also, when it leads to substance abuse and like stigma, a lot of things are something that I think is very overlooked. And this is just from my own experiences being a child of a parent who has substance abuse. You're kind of measured to their life and their struggles, and it's like, unfortunately, I've heard like people are surprised that I do well in life. I'm saying, like things like that. And it may seem naive, but it's kind of like people's own, like I said, stigma own lens. It's like, oh, there's no way, that child, that person's going to be successful, going to be happy, going to be, all these other things because their parent is this, and this, and this. So I think that's something that I think gets overlooked as well, how youth struggle with that. And also just find it easier to, okay, well, I might as well just follow in the footsteps of my parents. I might as well just go in their lane. Like I was already destined, right? From what society saw, from what this person said about me. And so, yeah, I think that's a point I definitely get from it as well. But yeah, as far as addiction, you guys are spot on, right? It's a compulsive, chronic, physiological, or psychological need for a habit forming substance, behavior, or activity, right? Causes of addiction can be extremely complex and vary by the type of addiction, and understanding why and how addiction can occurs helps us reduce the stigma around it. So thank you guys for that. Um, and, unfortunately, according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, about 20.5 million Americans, adults ages 12 and older, are battling or have battled, a substance abuse disorder, right? So I think we've kind of covered, a little bit, why do we think people become addicted? But not only that, just from Quinn's story itself, how do we think this negative stigma, hurt Quinn? Just by kind of listening to the people around him, what do you think that did for him, the negative stigma around addiction?
But it makes them hide it more and not talk about it. And so they start doing it in isolation. Like I'm sure his other friends didn't know that he was doing it when he was not around them as well, or by himself in his room, right? And then because of the negative stigma, he can't say like, oh, well, I started out as fun and now it has control over me, because then maybe he was just trying to save his save face, as I say it, and for some reason I lost my word, but yeah, you know what I mean? Thank you.
I think also looking from a male perspective too, like men are very good at hiding their issues, hiding any problems. They don't like verbal, like it's seen as like a physical strength or psychological strength, whether they're older males or the breadwinner or the head of house. Not that both parents or males and females don't have a role, they do, but it's sort of seen as the problem's over there. There's no problem here, sort of thing. Go over there. I'm okay, and they're not really good at sharing their problems or issues. I'm Steve, by the way. I work at the Hope Center in Fuquay Marina as a trainer, and our mobile crisis unit.
Thank you for that, Stephen. Yeah, I concur. Um, I have a brother, and he is always, always, always trying to make sure everyone else is okay. Um, but I know he's dealing with addiction too, and that is something that he's a caring person, very caring, very protective, very loving. But I know he checks on other people to keep people from checking on him. Because if we're checking on him, then he has to say what he's doing, or he has to accept it. But as long as he's checking on other people and doing things for other people, it's hiding what he's doing, or so he feels like. So, and being the sister that is overprotective, it's like we're in a tug of war, because I want to make sure he's okay, but he's trying to make sure I'm okay. And it's scary, because being on this side, it's like there's times when I feel like I have to let go, because he has to make up his own mind. But then there's times that I'm like, I'm just going to be there all the time. So if I'm there, he can't do it. And that's not a real way to think, but that's how I feel. If I'm there, he can't do it. And I know that's not logical, but I feel like that sometimes. So
Yeah, that's an awesome point to share. And that leads me to kind of the next question I wanted to bring up, though, was how might that negative stigma impacted Quinn's family and friends, right? What do you think that did to them?
I think there's a lot of guilt, especially because the sister was trying to warn people, and like it just leaves the family with guilt, like, dang, why didn't I see this, or why didn't I help, or why didn't I react, or blah blah blah, which it's not their fault, but you can't help but feel guilty as the family and friends because it was right there under your nose and near you, but you thought it was fine. So I would just assume there's a lot of feelings of guilt.
Yeah, I
guilt
think
is
that,
hard.
yeah, I
That
think
is
that's a
that
great
is
point.
one of the harder things. It's like, you do ask those questions. Why didn't I see that? Why didn't I call her? Or why didn't I say this? Or, you know, was I too hard on her, and that's the reason why she didn't call me this time? And, guilt is a it's a real thing when you're dealing with that. It's something I deal with constantly still. I lost my sister-in-law a few years ago, and I told her she needed to get her stuff together, and how can I help you, and this, that, and the other. And I was supposed to call her back to see if she got the job, and I forgot. And she didn't get the job, and I felt horrible because I didn't call her back. And so when she was going through it, she didn't call me. I found out after she was in the hospital, and it was too late. She never regained consciousness. And I deal with that guilt on a daily basis. It's so hard. So hard.
Once again, thank you for sharing that, Corey. Yeah, that's something definitely very, very hard to deal with, and there's no really telling people how to deal with it, right? Like they said, there is no guidebook, honestly, on these things. We do our best, right, to try to help people and tell people how they can support. But not only that, Quinn himself being hesitant to share his struggles with them, that could have been hurtful to them, right? They could have think like, am I not a good friend to him? Does he not trust me? Those kind of things. And then also like how the friends mentioned, they may have wanted to help, but just really wasn't sure how. So off of that, why, in your own words, is it important to remove the stigma from against addiction? Why would you think it's important to remove that stigma?
It is important because people are dying in silence. So many people every day are dying in silence because they're too afraid of what people are going to think of them, what people are going to say about them. And so they suffer in silence.
Thank you, Jennifer. Very true.
It's very true. And it's a choice, it's a choice for us. And sometimes life is hard and it's messy. Substance abuse, mental health, you know, suicide, those are hard topics. And sometimes people choose to not get involved because it is hard. It is messy. It's not predictable. And so a lot of times people just choose to not, because there's no roadmap. There is no guarantee that what you say is going to be the right thing. Um, so a lot of times you just choose to not. Um, I'm here to encourage you. Check on that person. Tell them how you feel. Tell them they're important. Tell them that they're needed. Tell them they're enough. It may not be enough for them, but do your part because it's needed.
I think it's
Also
important to break.
think,
Oh, go ahead.
so I was going to say, I also think, just education, like just part of this training, and just like Corinne said, education, and just checking on people. Like, I've got two teenagers myself, and if they ever have any issues, or whether it's bullying or suicidal ideation, when it's their problem, it's my problem. Whether it's my own children or someone around the corner, I think once, and I work with children going through mental health and stuff like that. Like, once they open up to me, it's now my problem, and I'm sort of happy to do my part. And I think that and I tell kids all this all the time, when you share a problem, you take some of that responsibility off that person and puts that responsibility onto someone else. And not that it's a big problem or anything, but now you have a responsibility to help in any small way by just finding resources or finding someone to listen to. And it doesn't have to be a major issue. It's just you could do the little things.
I think it's important to break the stigma kind of by what you're saying, because a lot of times you don't want to share with other people because you don't want to be a burden to them, or you don't want to put stuff on them. But in actuality, those people, they don't mind helping you and they want to help you if they knew that you needed help. So I think it's like there's like this gray area in between. Like, I want to ask for help, but I don't feel like I can ask for help. And then there's this person like, you should ask me for help, but I don't know if something's wrong. And so it's like we need to clear that space to know that it's a safe space and people do want to help you. Your loved ones are there, your support is there, and it's safe to go to them and they want to take that on and they want to help you. I think that that is important to people who are struggling with addiction and these type of things.
Yes, thank you guys so much for sharing. We are coming up on about 12, so I don't want to hold you guys too much longer. And I'm just once again want to say thank you so much for being here, sharing your guys' information, listening to me ramble, and just connecting, honestly. So thank you guys. So one last question I have before we go, right? As we've talked about all this, is what might be some ways we can help break the stigma, right? Let's share some tips with each other before we leave here today.
Well, I think it just goes back to what was said in the beginning, checking on people. When, if you haven't seen somebody, pick up the phone, check on them. If you're out in the community and somebody looks like they need help, don't wait for somebody else to do it. Be the hands and feet. I mean, I think that's the only way that we're going to get it out there and spread the awareness of it. It's like one helping one, and then the domino effect. But it has to start somewhere.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of say, I think us people that with lived experience sharing their stories like can help definitely break down the stigma. And like not only with the substance use but also with suicidal ideation, there's a lot of shame that comes with not wanting to be here anymore. And some of that can be tied into people coming off the substances, so educating people when they are getting clean, especially when they're coming off of like meth and things like that. There's like a period where you hit a wall after 3 months that unless you know what it is, you think you're going to feel that way forever, and some people get depressed and they don't want to live because they think it's going to last forever. And it takes time for like the brain to heal. And like, so educating people that way and letting them know this is a normal part of recovery. So,
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And Corey, I'll let you go. And I guess my thing that I was gonna say back to y'all about talking as well. Um, sometimes you just need to listen. Even if you just ask the question, they may not want advice, they may not want you to say anything, but sit there and listen. And I feel that's something I had to learn is give people the space they need because I am a talker and like I start getting really nervous and anxious and it ain't about me. So I need to stop making it about me and just sit there and be the person they need me to be, right? But Corey, yes, if you had anything else to say, that's great. If not, I'm gonna say
I was gonna say just what you said, Cam, intentionally listening, because sometimes people don't need you to fix it. They just need to be heard and and to know that someone cares enough to listen. So that's something that I'm still learning. I was gonna say it's something I've learned, but that's something I'm still learning.
right. We
Sometimes we
all are.
can't fix it. It's just listening. So
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you guys once again so much. So as we finish here today, I just want to carry forward two truths with you, right? Pain is real and healing is possible. Every number that we share today and everything we talked about represents a person, a story, and a life that matters. So what makes the difference? How we talked about, right? Connection, compassion, and action. When we show up for one another, we plant seeds of hope. So let's commit to speaking with kindness, reaching out to those, that we see that may seem isolated, sharing the resources we know of, and celebrating people's recovery. You're not powerless in this work. Each caring word and each open conversation is a life touched, and that matters, right? So thank you for being here, listening, and caring. Together, we can build communities where suicide is prevented, addiction is met with support, and recovery is celebrated, right? And before that, I also just want to share our webinar for next month is going to be on bullying prevention. We're going to have Somethings Here, which is an organization that has partnered with DHHS here in North Carolina to provide free telehealth counselors and psychologists to youth 13 and older. So we will have them here. You guys look out for that. And then also, we're always looking for people who want to come on and speak. So if you guys are interested in doing a webinar with us, please look out for that. And also just sharing your story, your information. We have all of that on our website and on our social medias and things like that. But I hope everyone has a great day and thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
This was awesome, Cam. Thank you.
This was.
Thank you, Cameron. It was great.
Thank you.